Hi, this is Mr. Heineman from Evergreen High School, and this is for my Microsoft Imagine Academy classes. This is Excel 2013 Core, Lesson 8. So in this exercise, we're going to use find and replace. Like in Word, Excel has find and replace, where we can find different text, and then we can also find and replace it with other text. So I have opened the items for sale workbook, and I've saved it as the student version, and then we're going to use the find feature to find a snow kayak. So I'm going to go up here to the binoculars in the home tab and click on find, and we're going to find snow kayak. And right now I'm just going to find the next one, and there it is, row 83. So I'm going to select row 83, and we're just going to delete it because we don't need to have it in this list anymore. Make sure it is Mary's Snow Kayak, and it is. So I'm going to go ahead and select the whole row, right click, and click delete to delete that row. And then I'm going to go ahead and close the find. And then we'll also use the replace. So I can click on the binoculars and click replace. But you'll notice it's the same find and replace dialog as earlier. So I could have just stayed there, clicked on the replace tab. And what we're going to do is we're going to replace the instances of walker gear with walk, hike, run, and shop. Or it's the walk, hike, run, shop. So now if we want to just find, and we have to be out of the selection there to find, we can find it, and it's going to start from where we're at. So we might want to save ourselves some time, go back here to the top, and then click find next, and we see that there's the first one in the sheet. I'm going to click replace all, and it made 18 replacements. So since we started at the top of the sheet, we already know if I click replace all again, it said couldn't find anything to replace, which means we've replaced all of them. So that's good. We can close that, save this, and move on. On this next exercise, we're going to add some hyperlinks. Remember, hyperlinks are just links to websites, and also they can be email addresses that will take you somewhere else. So what we're going to do is I have the membership sign up online form open here. I'm going to go down here to A20, and we're going to say return form 2 in A20, and then in B20 we're actually going to type this email address, iGreenwood@greensoulsadventuresclub.com. And when I hit enter, you'll notice that it automatically changes this into a hyperlink, and it's what we call a mail to hyperlink, which means it's going to open, if I click it, it will open Outlook and start an email. So we can just click it and send our email that way. It'll open it automatically and automatically say mail to iGreenwood@greensoulsadventuresclub.com. We're also going to add a fax to in A21. We're going to type the number. That's obviously not going to turn into a hyperlink because it's not a website. And then in A23, we're going to say visit us at, and then we're going to type just the website address without the HTTP. And again, it will automatically add the hyperlink for us. If for some reason we have to actually add our own hyperlinks, you can do that. We can go to insert, and then in the text or I'm sorry, in the links, we can add a hyperlink. Or we can also, if we have a hyperlink, we can click on a hyperlink and edit it if we need to. Same thing with the mail to. It's a little bit different because it's a mail to, but you can add or mail to hyperlinks if you want. So we're going to save that, and we're ready for the next exercise. So in this final exercise, we're working in Darcy's demolition workbook, and we're going to add some more hyperlinks and email addresses. So we have the active buyers over here. We're going to add to this the websites. So I'm gonna go ahead and say, put a title here with bolding that, and an email address, which we're also going to add a title for. And that way we know what these things are. So we're going to add the web addresses, www.j-junk, so I guess how you would say that, .net, and then it's junk@gmail.com. And again, you're going to notice as we do these things, the websites and the email addresses will automatically add hyperlinks. So we'll just get through this. Outlook. Cycling.net, and the last one for Sam Salvage. And it's important to know that these are not real websites. They're just made up websites. If you try and go to them, you should get an error. However, if you happen to go to them and there's a website there, it's just purely coincidence. So I'm going to go ahead and resize these columns so that they fit the whole things. And then for each of these websites, see, I can't open it. I accidentally clicked on it. We don't want to accidentally click on it like that. So we're going to get rid of the hyperlinks. So I'm actually going to go to Insert and click Hyperlink, and we're just going to remove the link. And we're going to do that for all these and see how that works. Might be easier. So we're just going to remove the link each time. I can also right-click and remove hyperlink. That might be an easier way to do it. We're going to leave the email addresses though, because we would assume that if this were these were real companies, that we would want to be able to email them anytime. That's it for this one. Click Save, and you're done. On to the creative applications. So in this first creative application, we're going to use macros, and we're going to also import data from an external file. So what I've done is I've opened up the snowfall report file, the snowfall from the microsite student files, and I've saved it as a macro-enabled workbook. So when you do that, that's File, Save As, you select your folder, and then make sure in Save As type you select macro-enabled workbook. If you don't do that, Excel's not going to recognize that you want macros and may not run your macros. So make sure you save it as a macro-enabled workbook. You'll know it's a macro-enabled workbook because the extension ends in M, XLSM. So now we're going to first import data from an external source. I'm selecting A5. I'm going to go to Data, Get External Data, and from a text file. And in the microsite student files, there's only one text file. It's only looking for text files, so it's going to find this one text file. We're going to select it and import, and now pops up the import dialog. And in the import dialog, there's some options here that we need to know. We need to know how the data is split in the file. So it can be either delimited, which uses a character like a comma or a tab to separate each field, or the fields are a certain number of characters and then there's spaces between each field. In our case, our data is delimited using tab. So we're going to make sure delimited is selected and click next. And then when we're delimited, we have a bunch of different options for delimiters, including ones that maybe people choose on their own. Common ones are tab, semicolon, comma, or space. In our case, it's tab, and it shows, you can see our data is correctly shown. The names of the resorts are here, the snowfall amount is here. So tab is the correct one. We're going to click next to move on, and now our data, we want to make sure we select the right data type. General will simply convert numbers to numbers, numeric values to numbers, and then anything else will get turned into text. Well, dates will become dates, but then text, anything else will be text. If we have numbers that we specifically want to be text, we would select text. For both these, we're going to leave them as general and click finish. And then we're going to select this this spot in the worksheet to add our data. We're going to click OK, and it added the data. Now we need to widen column B so we can see the title OK, and that's imported the data. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a macro to update this data, and that's going to involve several things. Remember, a macro is a set of commands that we record so that we can use later. In this case, we're going to, first we need to of course start our macro, so we're going to click View, go over to Macros, click Record Macro. We're going to record a macro called Update. Our shortcut key is going to be Control, Shift, and U. So all I need to do is press what the keys are going to be. So if I press Shift, then U, it'll recognize that I pressed Shift, then U. It's going to be stored in this workbook, and we should give a description. Update the snowfall amounts for each resort. That way somebody else who uses this workbook and wants to know what this macro does can understand what it does from the description. Now when I click OK, I'm in recording mode. So now anything I do is going to be recorded for the macro. So I'm going to click on A5 even though I'm already selected there, but that way I'll always go to A5. And I'm going to go back to my data, and this time I'm going to click refresh. And we're going to refresh all. And it's going to ask me what text file do I want to use. It's still the daily snowfall text file. When I click import, it's not going to ask me anything because it already knows all my options that I wanted. So now that it's added, I can again resize because I want to make sure I resize that every time. But now we're going to do an additional step of copying these values and adding them to whatever's here. Because when we run the macro again with more data, it's going to do all of these things. So I select my data points. I'm going to do a Control C to copy. I'm going to select these cells. I'm going to go back to home, and we're going to click paste, and we're going to do a paste special because I want to paste, I want to add to whatever's there when I paste. When I click OK, because there's nothing there, it's going to add nothing. And then I'm going to click or press ESC so that I stop selecting that. So now the cumulative snowfall will be here. I'm going to go back to View, Macros, and stop recording this macro so that I can have it saved. So now I'm actually going to open the text file, and we're going to go ahead and change the values. So maybe on another day they got 5 and Breckenridge got 2, Crested Butte got 8, Durango got, maybe they didn't get anything, and then Vail got, I don't know, 6. So when we do our update, what we should see is we should see these values be added to the 24-hour snowfall column, and then the cumulative be the total. So 5 plus 3, so we should have 8, 7, 10, 6, and 11. That's what should happen. So I'm going to go back to my workbook. I'm going to use my macro by pressing Control, Shift, and U, and select the daily snowfall text, and there it is. And did I get that right? Oh, you know what? I didn't save the text file. That's what happened. So I got to make sure I click Save the text file because it added, you'll notice these are double these because it added the same ones there. So make sure I click Save the text file. We'll do that again. Control Shift U. And there we go. That looks better. So, because it has the correct snowfall. And that's it for this. We're going to save this as is, and we're ready to move on to the last creative application. So in this last creative application, we're going to use import again, but this time we're importing from an Access file. And Access, if you don't know, is another Microsoft Office program that is for databases. And so databases store data, but then there's these things called queries that pull data from the database that we want. In this case, we're going to pull from a specific query and turn it into a worksheet, basically. So we're going to start with a brand new workbook, though. We're starting from scratch on this one, and we're going to go ahead and import from Access. So again, I go to Data, Get External Data. This time I'm going to select from Access. And of course, because they're both Microsoft Office applications, they work together. And then we're going to navigate to our microsite student files folder. And then there's only one Access file in there. It's called Garden Shop. So I click Open. And once I do that, it's going to now pop up a select table dialog. And this one, I'm going to select this one called GS Orders, because that's the one I'm looking for. It's the one I want to import. And we're just going to import it into this worksheet here. So now when I click OK, I'm just going to create it as a table, and then I don't know how big it is, so I'm just going to select A1, and then it will add as needed. So I click OK, and it adds everything from that query. So it adds it as a table. We want to update some things here. Use find and replace. So I'm going to go back to home, and we're going to replace all the instances of 2011 with 2014. We're going to update it by 3 years. So I'm going to click Replace All, and it told me we made 19 replacements. I'm going to do similarly. I see one for 2012, so I'm going to make sure I update that to 2013, and we'll click Replace All. There was only one replacement to make, so I can close out of Find and Replace. Now we're going to import another Access query, but this time we're going to create a new sheet. So I'm going to again go to Data, though, Get External Data, with the table not selected anymore. And then we're going to go to the same file, so it should be in the same location. And then we're going to select a different query, though. We're going to use orders. And actually it's a table. You can tell the difference. The query has this logo. These are tables, so the orders table. This time, though, we're going to create a new worksheet. So it's going to give us a new worksheet, automatically add it, and we're adding it as a table again. So when I click OK, new worksheet pops up, and then we have this data. We're going to do the same thing we did earlier and replace all the instances of 2011 with 2014, and then we'll repeat the same thing. I guess we could have done the 2012 and 15 while we were there, but we're going to go ahead and do that. And looks like there's one replacement. So that's it. We save this as Garden Shop student, and we've completed lesson 8 which also means we've completed all of the Excel 2013 core lessons on the microsite. Congratulations.